So how concerned should shareholders be about this Justice Department review? Joining us tonight is Mark Lehman. He's president at JMP Securities. Good to see you again, Mark. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bill.
I guess the short answer from you is they shouldn't have to worry much. Why?
Well, I mean, you're going to be worried because there's going to be a lot of headlines coming up, and I think that's something that we will continue to pay attention to. But like we saw with the Cambridge Analytica scare of the last year, and Facebook had its all-time high a year ago, about now when they reported second quarter earnings, there were a lot of headlines and a lot of legislative meetings, but really nothing's happened except some self-regulation and, frankly, a slap on the wrist on this $5 billion fine.
Right.
I think the self-regulation is more likely, and I think you're going to see lots of headlines and lots of bluster, but very little coming out of Congress,
well, let's go
and let alone the legislators.
Let's look at each company and see where the vulnerabilities may lie. Facebook, I mean, they clearly have been under the most intense scrutiny as it pertains to their user data and the data breaches and all that. I mean, but at the same time, we just learned today that the users haven't fled at all.
Well, Facebook always reminds me of, Hall & Oates, who sold a couple 100 million albums, and they always said nobody admitted to buying one. Nobody admits to being on Facebook all day, yet the data says that people are on 40 minutes a day on that, and as my kids are any example, on Instagram as well. People are not going to flee that platform. It's where they get their news. It's where they get their social engagement, and that's a really hard thing to legislate, and I think that's why it's not going to change going forward.
Amazon, as we heard, they may be most vulnerable when it comes to their third-party sales and so forth, and the strong-arming that they do there and the data that they're able to accumulate.
Amazon certainly has an issue there. I think they're going to continue to gain the market share that they have on the retail side, but it's very hard to legislate where people go. And I think you're going to continue to see consumers want that, maybe some additional choice, and maybe there'll be some small slap on the wrist that they will probably self-legislate. But I just don't see Congress being able to legislate where people's eyeballs go and where they want to buy things. It's been historically a very hard thing for Congress and the Justice Department to legislate.
Google may also be most vulnerable as it pertains to search results and the juggernaut that they are in that area there.
Google obviously has an overwhelming share. In fact, it's become a verb, right? We're going to Google that search. So I think that is another area that will have great headlines, and they could probably rank choice some of the data that does come up, but that may favor some of Google's top advertisers or other consumers. But they really have to pay attention to Google because they have the juggernaut for market share. So I think, again, all these stocks are going to be in the headlines for I think, some time on these data, but I just don't see Congress being able to legislate where people's eyeballs and clicks decide to go.
Very quickly on Apple, I mean, Tim Cook has said they're not a monopoly, but what about the App Store and the tremendous iron fist that they wield there?
I think it's somewhat similar. You have a consumer who goes to that app store constantly and is looking for new ways to access companies and data and products, et cetera. There will probably be some self-regulation where they decide to put certain things on top of others or certain things at different points on the app store. But like you said, that's an open marketplace. And the Congress and the legislators and people who regulate like marketplaces, they will probably find some way to self-regulate. Yeah. I just think that app store is here to stay.
And for the record, I was a big fan of Hall & Oates myself as well. Mark Lehman.
You and me both, Bill.
Mark Lehman with JMP Securities. Thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thank you.